Welcome to BDO's Legal Tech Talk podcast. We're joined by judges and legal professionals to discuss emerging trends, regulatory updates, and the latest headlines. We'll provide tips to help your law firms and legal departments make the most out of legal technology. I'm Daniel Gold, BDO Principal and eDiscovery Managed Services Leader.
And I'm Eric Dirk, BDO's Managing Director of Legal Operations. Let's get started with this episode's exciting discussion.
And welcome back to another episode of BDO, a Legal Tech Talk podcast. Very excited to be joining us in the virtual recording studio today is Jessica Vanderplug. Jessica is the Vice President of Legal Operations at Belron, and she is most importantly a powerhouse in the legal operations world. She is quite literally known for transforming legal departments into strategic business enablers, and she has had an impressive career already spanning leadership roles at places like Micro Focus, NetApp, Litigation Services LLC, and Precision Opinion. She brings a wealth of experience in operational strategy here to the virtual recording studio. And what's interesting as well is that she also serves as an advisor to innovation roundtables. And one of the things that we're really going to dive deep into today, Eric, is that she is a founding board member of LegalOps.com, where she is helping shape the future of the legal operations ecosystem. I think that's very, very exciting. Jessica, welcome to the program. We're so excited to have you join us here today.
Thank you so much, Daniel and Eric. I am thrilled to be here talking about legal ops, legal technology, AI, LegalOps.com. I could not be more thrilled.
That's great. And there is an upcoming conference that LegalOps.com is running called Running Legal Like a Business that you are, as I said in the introduction, a founding board member of. And I really want to start there. It's interesting. A couple of years ago, Eric and I went to a legal operations conference, and I was listening to all the speakers, and I remarked this to a couple of the folks that were there. I said this to Eric too. There seems to be a definition problem. And what I mean by that is that there doesn't seem to be as much consensus as I'd love there to be, as I'm sure others in the legal operations profession would as well, but the real definition of what a legal operations professional does. And I thought that was really profound because it is such an important role in every single legal department. So can I start off by just having you define, Jessica, and you're probably one of the best people to do this for us, define for us what a legal operations professional is, and has it drifted from its original intent?
I think that's a really good question. So I would say when I think about legal operations, I think about legal operations as the strategic arm to the legal department. And I think a lot of people would think about it as the operational arm to the legal department, which is in essence true. But we are the ones that help strategically drive the department alongside the GC. We help to ensure that the department runs like a business, ensure that the department is data-driven, ensure that we've got the KPIs we need, the technology that we need. But I think that legal operations is the strategic arm of legal. I think that legal operations is part of the competitive advantage that helps drive the legal department to be all that it can be. Oh my goodness, now we're recruiting people for something more than legal operations. But I really do think that legal operations is growing and evolving, and I'm hoping that this hopeful shift drives us more to strategically driven legal operations.
Love it. So I'm just going to kind of drill into that for a second, Jessica. When I was a young man in legal operations, we talked a lot about the tactical execution of work. Maybe it was a spend routine, maybe it was a process map, maybe it was really just kind of defining roles. And as you talk about this big word strategy, why don't we get into some examples about how you can be a strategic advisor, not a practicing lawyer, by the way, and not get into the day-to-day legal work that lawyers perform, but rather offer them insights and optionality around how to enable strategy through process and tech. Because that's like, to me, Jessica, that's my biggest challenge with legal operations today, is that we kind of lived with a fairly, I think, rigid definition. And when you bring up the word strategy, it's like, well, wait a minute. We could be thinking about giving options and insights on outcome. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience in that context.
Yeah, I am absolutely happy to. So I think it's an interesting angle. And I could tell you that strategy means one thing to everyone, and I don't think that it does. I think so much of where you strategize within your legal department and how you strategize within your legal department is based on the maturity of your legal department and the maturity of your legal operations function. And as you start to look at where do I begin and how do I evaluate and how do I improve and where do we look for efficiencies, it's just not uniform. And I don't think that it can be. And so I'll give you an example. I'll speak to my experience at Belron. So I think that we were a strong yet somewhat immature legal department when I joined. Wildly good talent, such smart people, really good lawyers. Yet we lacked process and we lacked technology and we lacked a little bit of the strategy around the legal department. And we have a very forward-thinking global general counsel. And so alongside her, we were able to say, what does the legal department have and what does the legal department need? Well, when we sat down and thought about it, we actually didn't have some of the basics of what a business, if you will, has. We didn't have mission, vision, values. We didn't have KPIs. We didn't have set strategic priorities. We weren't measuring against those types of things. We didn't have a North Star, if you will, that our legal department could follow and be guided by, even when they get caught up in the day-to-day, which we all do almost every day. And so what we had to sit down and do was say, how do we guide this legal department in the right direction under the right circumstances with the right parameters? And so we actually started by building a legal purpose. Who are we and where are we headed? And then we went on to say, okay, well, what behaviors drive us towards that purpose and what behaviors should we be exhibiting? And then we went a step further and say, well, how do we actually visualize that within our legal department? How do we create this rich picture, if you will, that someone could have up and say, I know exactly where our legal department is headed. I know exactly what I should be focusing on. And so I know, Eric, that doesn't answer your question, but I will get there. But that's kind of how we started. And then what we did is we said, how do we measure ourselves against those things? Are we actually keeping up with our KPIs? Are we actually going with our priorities? Are we doing these things in the day-to-day? And that's where I started having conversations with our various leaders to say, how are you executing? How can I support you? Look at this technology that I've seen. Who can I speak with about the various processes that are going on within your organization? And we've started to create a bit more of a community, if you will, within our legal department, where we say, we're going to bring people together for working groups. We're going to bring leaders together to talk about some of these things that we're tracking against. We're going to bring subcommittees together, which I typically hate, but to talk about how do we get to this next step and what does it mean to actually meet these goals? And so it felt counterintuitive to everything I know how to do, which is run, right? I know how to run and I know how to excel and I know how to deliver, but to actually stop and really think about the strategy and not only about it, but how to embed it within a legal department took a muscle that I don't think we have all flexed all that much recently.
It's really well said. So one of the things that we talk so much about, but we have such little understanding on how to communicate across all kinds of levels and minds, is the idea of strategy enablement. So when you go through the mission, vision, goals, or mission, vision, values, one of the things that we often come forward with is, well, there's these broad statements and there's this general idea about what a mission is or a series of goals. But legal ops has this ability to actually enable that strategy. That's really what I think is the underserved ultimate capability inside a law department. And we're just talking about law departments, by the way. And that is to really practically and tactically apply the ideas of strategy. So, and it's not just about technology enablement, right? It's about helping lawyers figure out better ways to think through an outcome, a sourcing arrangement. Maybe it could just be actually a realigning work internally to a team that's more sophisticated or facile. So I guess we're going to get to AI because we just love to talk about AI. But the other thing I really wanted to get to before that is, how do you convince people and coach them on the idea around adaptability and change? Because that seems to be like our biggest problem inside law departments.
It's a really good question, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges that I think we face as legal leaders and legal operations leaders more specifically. It takes time. I always used to use this example of microdosing and how you microdose your legal department. If you got a peanut allergy, you have a little bit of a peanut at a time, you don't have that anaphylactic reaction to technology or change. And so I've used that kind of throughout my career. And we've also been really open with our law department around what will change look like? What will it feel like? How will you experience it? So for us, it's been a journey. And it's been a slower journey. I want everything to happen month one, day one, week one, and things are happening at year one and, year 1.5. But what we've done is we started small and we started easy. We started with just a conversation with me. Tell me all your woes. What goes well? What doesn't go well? What's the thing that makes you not want to come into the office because it's such a headache to work on? And then from there, we started to make a list. We said, all right, well, we've got what goes well. We got what doesn't. What now? Then we started to bring people together for short, brief trainings. And we said, this is what Copilot looks like. This is what AI looks like. This is what technology can look like in a more well-established or a more advanced legal department. Maybe we get there one day, but this is just what it looks like. So we're just laying the foundation brick by brick. And then we would get into conversations around, this is what strategy looks like. This is what process improvement looks like, but it was bite-sized pieces. We didn't shove everything at them at once. We didn't shove everything on them at once. And then we started going region by region. I'd go to the US office and say, this is what it looks like and this is what we're doing. Is anyone interested? And we would take those volunteers. And that was our starting point. We weren't forcing anyone. And so if someone was willing to raise their hand and say, I'm willing to get outside of my comfort zone, I'm willing to try technology, I'm willing to try AI, I'm willing to do something different, they became our mouthpiece. They became our one that was then willing to have the conversations on our behalf. But it takes time, and it's the hockey stick, right? Or a tipping point. And I actually just told my GC 6 weeks ago that we hit the tipping point. 14 months after I joined, we hit a tipping point where I was no longer selling myself and other team members were selling my services, if you will, to others within the legal department. But it was very much a one piece of technology, one conversation, one training. And it was this almost titrating of information and technology and process to our legal department. And one last thing is, we didn't tackle everything at once, even though I desperately wanted to. And so we would go out and say, here's information. Now we need something from you. Here's technology. Now we need something for you. So we actually did this thing called right task, right person, which Eric, I think you alluded to a little bit. Is there someone better suited to do this? Does it fit better somewhere else? And it wasn't a 6-week effort, and it was terrible. It was Excel-based. We made them track all of their matters and all of the different tasks that they were doing. I was enemy number one, but they got to the end of that 6 weeks and they went, I would look at my list and give myself a pat on the back for how much work I had done. Or I looked at my list and realized someone asked me, the most experienced lawyer here in this country, to clean a pantry. And I did it. And so it was just this interesting realization of like, look at what we're doing and yet look at what we're doing. But the only reason we were able to do that is because we spent the 9 months prior, little by little, building them up to a point where they realized, I'm not going to ask them to do something that's completely unnecessary. I'm not going to shove technology at them that isn't needed. And we're not going to change for the sake of change. We're going to do it when it makes sense and where it makes sense and where it's going to be most effective for the business.
Well, first of all, there's congratulations for you, because what you have accomplished is fantastic. I often say that it usually takes about 12 to 18 months to really start making a notable difference. And you are right in that sweet spot right there. And that's huge. I've already said that I'm a big fan of the legal operations role, and I love everything you talked about. I want to play devil's advocate for a moment here, because this is really back into the importance of the legal operations role. So you described legal operations as really being the strategic arm of the legal department, not just the operational side. The devil's advocate in me wants to say, well, okay, I get it, Jessica, but the legal department is really just another business unit within a company, right? Why do you think it's important to have a clear purpose, a vision, and a mission? After all, the company in and of itself is going to celebrate and socialize out its vision, its purpose, its values, etc., the legal department is just another BU, another business unit. Why does it need to have it? It just handles legal work and compliance, right? So what does having those elements actually change for the department and more broadly, the entire organization?
I love that question. And it's a good devil's advocate question, right? Because it's really easy to say, like, we're legal, we're special, we're unicorns, we do all these amazing things. How dare you? Which I would never say. But I do think, actually, I want to ask you a question, Daniel. The company that you work for, when was the last time you looked at the mission, vision, values? And when was the last time that you were like, this is going to impact my daily work and I can't wait to look at it tomorrow and I'm going to make sure I'm following it to a T?
I love when guests turn the tables and ask me a question. And Jessica, just so you know, and this is true, if I were in my home office, I would be able to prove it to you. But I actually have the back of the business card taped to my monitor. And the back of my business card at BDO has our core purpose, which is to help people thrive every day. And it has its core values of choosing accountability, of embracing change, of creating exceptional ways every day, every way, and embracing change. Those are the things that I believe. You've probably asked the wrong person because I bleed core purpose and core values. I eat it for breakfast. I dream about it when I sleep. It is what makes Daniel Gold Daniel Gold. But to your point, there are hundreds of people and thousands of people within an organization that have literally no idea.
I absolutely have asked the wrong person. And I should have known that based on the wall decor we talked about and all of the, exactly, the core words that you really thrive with. But you're right. I don't think that's the norm. And we actually, Belron has an incredibly strong culture. We have very clear mission vision. We have very clear values. We have a very clear leadership framework. And it is prolific throughout our organization. And our culture is what people come to Belron for. It's one of the things that within our hiring makes us unique. But I don't think our lawyers, I don't think they look at that and think about that every day. And I think part of it is, some of it is specific to them. Yes, absolutely. It fits everyone, right? We're driven, we're caring. We want to provide this service. Yes. But there is something deeper, I think, that lawyers resonate with. So I'm going to talk about our behaviors for just a minute. We talk about being trusted, and we talk about providing this unique service, this trusted partner aspect. And for whatever reason, that resonates with lawyers, right? Being that trusted provider, providing that trusted advice, being that person that the business comes to when they need something, when they're in that critical moment, that I don't think is often captured within a company's mission, vision, values. However, I will say, I think most BUs, if they don't, should do this type of exercise, because you should be guided by your company values and you should be guided by your company mission vision. But then how do you take it that one step further to make it real and tangible for your law department? Legal departments can go beyond their company mission vision values and take it and make it tangible for their lawyers. What does it mean to be in sales for you? What does it mean to be caring and driven and all of these other things? And how does that actually apply to a lawyer in our specific law department? And I think that specificity is something that's special and unique. And I think it drives lawyers more than just a company mission, vision, values.
Legal teams are struggling to manage resources, maintain compliance, and adopt new technologies. BDO's legal operations team can help. We enhance efficiency, reduce costs, and support compliance so you can run your legal department like a business. Schedule a meeting with us today at BDO.com.
We just had our 60th podcast anniversary. Daniel's been doing this for like 3 years. And Connie was great to join. And one of the things that she said essentially was what you just said, which is, hey, it's really important for the legal operations people to think about becoming business enablers as opposed to maybe more defenders. I guess the thing that would be interesting to talk about is, over the years in my career, we often think about the law department as defending the company. Your core focus is to make sure we stay out of hot water, you hire the top firms. And oh, by the way, if you can manage spend along the way and help us get a better turn for the dollar, good on you. But now I really think particularly with the advent of AI and some of the things that you talk about with automation and workflow design, we're now kind of at the forefront of being able to test and try some of these routines, not just in the context of legal. Maybe it's the context of document management, knowledge management, information sharing. So when we start thinking about this strategic enablement and really serving as more than just a defender, maybe you could talk about how you think the legal ops role needs to kind of go from now, next, and beyond, as David Cowan would say. Tell us a little bit about what your future vision of that is. And don't forget to use insights on AI, because that's what we're all kind of talking about every day.
Well, if I miss something, you let me know and I'll always add to it. But I think you're right. For the longest time, the job has always been to protect the house. And how do we ensure the house is protected? And how do we ensure the people in the house are safe and that it's well run? But I think that we, as legal professionals and as lawyers, can do more. And that's where we actually become true partners to the business. And I'll give you some tangible examples to that. We have a technical arm of our organization, and that technical arm is one of legal's biggest partners within the organization. So as they start to say, we want to do this better, faster, differently, but we know there's a legal element to it, we come to the table with the lawyer, with the legal element, and then I come to the table alongside it to say, yeah, that's great. That's legally sound. Follow what he says, but also let's add in AI here. Let's add in some automation here. Here's how we can actually use legal technology to solve your problems. And I think that's part of what maybe you're alluding to, Eric, is technology in general can be used in almost any department. And we're starting to look at how do we enable our legal department to be better, faster, stronger with the use of AI, while also comforting them that AI is not going to take what they're doing. It's going to enhance what they're doing. It's going to make them to be able to focus on that work of substance, not that work that's a manual, repetitive nature. And I think beyond is an interesting place that I've not spent a lot of time thinking about right now because we're so entrenched in the now. But when I think about what comes next, it's, do we have the right mix of people on the team? Do we now need a data scientist? Do we now need an AI specialist? Do we need different types of technology? Do we have the right mix of talent? And if we do we have that talent doing the right things with the right technology? I don't ever want a lawyer negotiating an NDA again, right? I don't ever want someone creating RIF documents for an HR department that automation can create. I don't ever want our PA to take a birthday from an Excel sheet and put it into an email and prep or put it into an Outlook so that it's on a calendar so that a GC can write an email to say happy birthday. Like, no, never again. There's technology to do all of these things, but it's how do we actually get to the point of pure and true automation with an AI backdrop that then allows our attorneys to be that partner that not only protects the house, but then looks at, well, what's the next house? And how do we buy the block? And can we have that whole city and really start to be that forward-thinking, proactive partner, not the reactive, protect the house partner?
One of the things that you are talking about the implementation of AI is actually really exciting. And one of the things that we talked about at the very beginning about your involvement in multiple different innovation roundtables, your involvement with LegalOps.com and running Legal Like a Business. And we talked about how there's an upcoming conference, which you are going to be there, obviously, because you're a founding board member. For folks that hadn't heard of it, want to get involved, et cetera, there is this idea in my mind right now, Jessica, about there's going to be so much talk at the conference, no doubt, about AI. So can you talk to us a little bit about your excitement about the Running Legal Like a Business conference, the value that it provides for legal operations professionals, but also in that, I apologize for the compound question, but also how are you able to help attendees distinguish between meaningful, actionable AI strategies and the general noise or hype surrounding AI and legal operations across the multiple different facets that you're just discussing?
I go to conferences because I want to learn, I want to network, and I want to walk away with something tangible. And I can't afford to be up all night and come back more tired than when I got there. And so being at a conference where I know exactly what I'm going to get and the value it's going to provide for content and networking and things like that, is a huge and important value to me. Now, from an AI strategy perspective, I think that there is this ecosystem movement that's happening because there is so much technology and there is so much evolution in the technology space that we have to create almost these subgroups of professionals that can say, have you tested this? Do you know this? What do you do for this AI problem? Because there's too much technology for any one person to be able to keep up with on their own. I've demoed 79 technologies in the last 11 months, and I can't keep pace with legal technology. And I don't know a lot of other people that are demoing that much technology. If I can't keep pace, I don't know how anyone is. And so being able to come to an event like this and being able to say, what have you looked at and what have you tested? And oh, these 7 AI providers are here. I'm going to talk with not only my colleagues, my peers, but also these providers about what they're seeing in the ecosystem and how we start to build that strategy, I think is a really unique piece of LegalOps.com because they create that environment, that perfect environment to be able to have those conversations. But just from a quick, very specific strategy perspective, I think one of the most challenging things that we're trying to solve for our law department right now is how do we take a fragmented law department where countries have autonomy and regions have autonomy and a group has some authority but also some autonomy, and how do we start to bring that together? How do we bring it together from a cohesiveness perspective, a technology perspective, a document and process perspective? And is there some kind of AI technology out there that can help us to solve all this? And is it a point solution or is it a wider solution? And what does that look like? And I don't think that I've solved that yet. And I think that heading to RLLB in just a short amount of time now, my goal is to sit with my peers and to sit with others that I've not spent time with before and to sit with these different providers and say, what are you doing in this space and how can you help me think through this?
That's really interesting that you say it like that, because Dan and I are playing around with RAGs and like baby language models, right? And we're starting to realize that you don't really need to rely upon the large language models out of the box if you have enough good content that you've either created or bought and you can actually mash it up together. And what we're learning is it's a very progressive process, right? We don't have, like, I think we're so used to just kind of having it's very linear. We buy some tool, we implement it, we get some value out of it. We don't really quantify it, but now AI is kind of giving us this regenerative idea, like continuing to mash, continuing to kind of stir the soup, get the ratatouille perfect, right? Like we're at this moment where we have to change what our expected outcomes are from a linear to a cyclical approach because we're all just used to moving on. And now we're going to actually be able to move back within and keep learning about what we haven't been able to uncover in the past to share new insights and learning. So your decentralization comment is spot on because, gee, when I'm trying to evangelize or talk about a better way of working, people don't, I mean, you might have a hard time believing this, but people don't always just want to take me at face value. They want facts. Give me data. Tell me what the learning cycles are. Tell me how long I have to take to actually train somebody up on this. AI is going to help us with that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's a game changer. It's something I play with every single day, multiple times a day. I'm piloting new ones all the time because it is changing and it is ever evolving, but it's also progressive, I think. It's progressive in learning, us and it. And we are so far from whatever the final or even more advanced version of AI is. I mean, it's new versions are coming all of the time. And yet, I don't think we can even begin to imagine all that it's going to solve one day.
The idea of the worst of AI is here. The best of it is to come. You know?
Yeah.
That is such a great way of being able to close out today's episode. Thank you, Jessica, for sharing your insights, your expertise, and your experiences with us. We appreciate your time and really grateful for your contributions. I said we were thrilled to have you here at the outset of this conversation, and you have really proven that out. You provided many, many people so many insights as to the value of legal operations professionals and what the future is to come. And we are, in particular, looking forward to seeing you at the conference, the Running Legal Like a Business conference. Jessica, if people are curious about more information about the conference, is there any other additional, contact information that would be helpful for folks?
Obviously, if anyone wants to, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. I think Connie Brenton is the mother of all things legal operations. So obviously more than welcome to reach out to her. And the conference is this year, September 2nd through the 5th in Las Vegas. So hopefully we'll be able to see some people there.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Of course.
Thanks for joining us on BDO's Legal Tech Talk podcast.
If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe for more episodes.
On BDO.com, you'll find all of our episodes, transcripts, and ways to continue the conversation.
Until next time, this has been another episode of BDO's Legal Tech Talk.